TikTok, time to rock. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. This is the most acclaimed show on jihad activity in the world today, and that is This Week in Jihad. Now, there is David Wood. David Wood is here, ladies and gentlemen, so don't despair, but why is David Wood not showing up? Now, I guess David Wood is the only one showing up now. How do we get to that split screen thingy?
You've been doing this for weeks now.
Yeah, well, I thought all I had to do was have you here. There it is. There it is.
There we go.
Okay.
You got us?
Ladies and gentlemen, I have to apologize. I know there have been some irritated remarks in the comments. I got to tell you, look, I am just a writer guy. And I've been on shows for years, but I have never been the host except years ago when David and I both were doing shows out at ABN, wonderful people, and they took care of all the technical things. And since then, I have just been a guest here, a guest there, a guest everywhere. I've never done this stuff. I don't know how to do this stuff. Also, please, one question I thought I would ask tonight. Last week I asked, how should I begin the show? David very generously allowed me to use his intro, since I allow him to say they're misunderstanders of Islam, and so we're even on that. But I asked for intros. I got a few. This is the best one. So until Allah abrogates it, causes it to be forgotten, and gives us something better, we're going to go with that. But in any case, I did want to ask you, since you were here on my channel, those of you who are still with us, if I should do something else, other videos. And please let me know what you think about that. And if you have any ideas about what they might be. But in any case, we got all kinds of jihad tonight, and I have even gone to the unusual step of organizing the tabs, so that instead of having 37 tabs open, and I can't even see what they are, I have them in sections, so that there's going to be a certain pleasing thematic unity to tonight's show. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, pleasing thematic unity. So welcome, David. I hope you appreciate this. Yes.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool because the idea is you start live streaming, and or this goes for videos too, and for pretty much anything else you do in life. You go ahead and get started, and then everyone tells you what you're doing wrong.
Yeah.
But you improve a little each time, and then before you know it, everything is awesome. So now you're even organizing stuff thematically. Yeah. So it's getting better.
I've organized stuff thematically in books for years. People, you should read books. The reason why we're doing this is because y'all don't read books. Now, I love you all. I'm sure some of you have read books, but me, as a writer guy who writes books, I'm sorry to see that fewer and fewer people are reading books, but if you're going to watch videos, then let's do it. So here we are. We got yes, it happened again.
Oh, I just wanted to give one quick comment that is correct. Queej in Hamilton said, ignore the nasty comments, Robert Spencer. You rock. So
hey, look, I can do this. There it is on the screen, ladies and gentlemen.
That's it's partly true and partly not true. It's right. Yes, I mean, the internet has done something to people's minds where they post really nasty stuff all the time, and any mean comment that pops into their head, they'll go ahead and share it. With that said, some people's comments are valuable and important, right? And so it's a matter of sifting through those and saying, okay, this guy's a jerk troll. Hey, this person makes a valid point. Let me listen to this person.
Okay, what about this now? See, you said the blue headphones were good. I've had the blue headphones. I've had these for years. These are my airplane headphones to play the greatest jazz on the planet. And now there's something wrong with the blue headphones?
Yeah, see, notice that is something you can't pay attention to that, right? If someone says, hey, you're wearing blue headphones, that's the sort of person who for 10 years has been posting on Facebook, this is what I had for lunch. Everyone needs to know what I have for lunch. And somehow somehow it gets ingrained in their brains that every thought that pops into their head is worthy of being shared.
Yeah.
And guys, it's not. It's just not.
Ain't that the truth? That's why I've never written a novel, ladies and gentlemen, and if you're lucky, I never will. Anyway, let's go to Jihad. We have, in the first section of our pleasing thematic unity tonight, we have the kinetic, violent jihad. And so I don't mean to make light of it. Some of it is quite horrible, as it always is. But we start off with a story out of the Maldives, David. You may have seen this one. This was a gentleman who was riding along, a minister in the Maldivian government, Ali Soli, who was riding along on a motorbike in the capital of the Maldives, Male, and another gentleman came up to him with a sharp instrument and began to stab him. Where do you think he began to stab him, David?
Great Karnak says in the neck.
It's uncanny. I'm in awe. But not only this,
I need to start having a little envelope that I just need to put a card inside, and the card says neck or Allahu Akbar, and everything you ask me, I can just pull that up and pull it out and show that I knew ahead of time.
That's right. Now, this gentleman in particular, before he began to stab Ali Soli in the neck, he was seen reciting a passage from a particular book. What book do you think he was reciting from, David?
I'm going to go with Quran here.
Really, if this were Jeopardy, you would be in the tens of thousands by now.
I'd be that Ken Jennings dude.
Indeed. Okay, we go to Germany. In Germany, we have Michael Stürzenberger, who is the head of Pax Europa, which is a very good group. I don't mean to make light of it by having a General Burkhalter accent here, but I would do
a way more serious accent, because I used to, for years of German classes, my German teachers hated me because I would always talk like this. Stürzenberger, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you sound really tame.
Is a very courageous individual, in fact, and he was speaking in Gladbeck in a rally of Pax Europa, and was approached by some young Muslims who knocked him to the ground, hit him in the head. The rally was canceled. This is also similar to something that happened in Russia, where a Muslim was detained for preparing an act of terrorism against politicians in India because they insulted Muhammad. We've spoken about these Indian politicians in the past few weeks, David. Nupur Sharma, the former spokesperson from the BJP, the ruling party, the BJP, and some others now who have been fired from their jobs. There was recently, I got that story here in another section, another BJP official who was fired member of the Legislative Assembly, who was fired for supposedly criticizing Muhammad, although he never named who he was talking about. He started talking about a 53-year-old man who married a little girl. In any case, somebody must have gotten some crazy idea that had something to do with Muhammad. But in any case, insults to Islam resulting in violence or potential violence in Russia and in Germany. In Pakistan.
By the way, Robert, I don't know how familiar you are, because I haven't read the story about the most recent situation in India over supposed blasphemy about Muhammad. But I don't know if this was the same one or a different one, but it was in a police report that he had made blasphemous remarks about Muhammad, and I saw a lot of people complaining, saying blasphemy is not a crime.
Yes.
And yet police were reporting this guy blasphemed the Prophet Muhammad. It's like, wait, you're India, you're not Saudi Arabia. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's astonishing. This is T. Raja Singh, and he, as I said, he didn't even mention Muhammad. He was just talking about Muhammad without naming him, and somehow people assumed. There was actually a case like that in the United States a few years back. Some individuals put together a billboard that said "The perfect man married a 6-year-old girl, et cetera, et cetera." He did all these other things that Muhammad did, but never mentioned Muhammad. And nonetheless, still Islamic groups, they protested. They knew who was being referred to.
What
Consequently,
sort of monster would make a little billboard like that?
I don't know. Actually, I don't remember who made that billboard. We made a lot of billboards in our day, but that was not one of ours. Anyway, in Pakistan, a mob of Muslims chased, nearly lynched to death if they hadn't been prevented by police. Uh, a Hindu who was a sanitary worker. They found burnt pages of the Quran on the floor. And when I say that he was prevented by police, it wasn't because the police came in and said, you can't chase and kill this man for a burnt Quran that he might not have had anything to do with. They were arresting the Hindu. And as far as I know, he is still in custody on these allegations of blasphemy. Now, the thing is, a burnt Quran page could have come from any number of things. How do you dispose of a Quran that's all worn out, according to Islamic law?
You burn it.
There you go. And it would seem like Pakistan, which is a country that is veritably awash with Qurans, would likely have quite a lot of Quran burning going on in a particularly routine manner by Muslims themselves. And that these kinds of incidents could be opportunistically used to victimize religious minorities in the country.
Along these lines, at what point do they stop calling us crazy Islamophobes for pointing out that Islam has these issues with blasphemy? I mean, it's here now. We have it. We have these attacks in the United States with Salman Rushdie. You have the issues in India and Pakistan, and I mean, in Africa, in the Middle East, anywhere someone can simply accuse another person of blaspheming Muhammad or the Quran, people start dying. And yet, when we point out why, we're racists and bigots, and that's the only reason you could come to such a conclusion.
It's a tactic. It's not really rational discourse. It has the appearance of rational discourse, but not the substance. And so the answer to your question is, when will they ever stop? They'll never stop. Because what they're trying to do is silence people like you and me and not have a real honest discussion about these things. And so they will continue because they don't care about the inconsistency and the self-contradiction. It doesn't matter. This is just a tool, a stick to beat us with. It's like Breivik, you know? Breivik quoted me, he quoted lots of other people, but all the time I see people on Twitter saying, well, you know, Breivik quoted this guy, as if I told him, go out and kill people.
Yeah, he quoted Darwin, John F. Kennedy.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, and what's interesting about all of that, even though we've pointed this out numerous times, Breivik in his, what was it, 1,500 page manifesto, he gives the entire sort of evolution of his thinking that he needed to turn to violence, and all of it, his entire plan was underway in 1999, long before he or I had heard of Robert Spencer. So, I mean, he said he came to the conclusion that there's a problem with Islam when he was growing up in his area. He would see, non-Muslims get beaten up by Muslims and things like that. He said he started thinking there's a problem. He said then he started to read the Quran and the Hadith. He concluded there's a problem. Then he thought about going into politics, but he said it's a waste of time. And he said he realized that Al-Qaeda had shown the correct way to get through the media's blockade of information, you have to launch a deadly shock attack, as he put it. Deadly shock attacks are the way to get people's attention in spite of politicians and the media covering things up. And he said he concluded all of this long before, again, we'd heard of Robert Spencer or Pamela Geller. And yet, when he actually carries out his attack, whose fault is it? Well, he explained his entire thought process. So you could blame the people who upset him when he was growing up. You could blame the Quran and the Hadith, where he said he saw problems. You could blame the politicians and the journalists who he said made him realize that it was a complete waste of time to even try to discuss this because people would just call you racist. You could blame Al Qaeda for convincing him that it was deadly shock attacks were the way to move forward. And yet, none of that gets blamed, and it's Robert Spencer's fault.
Yeah. And so it's just a tactic here again. It's not that they want to have a rational discussion. I've pointed out millions of times until not just my headphones, but my very face is blue. And said, he rebuked me for not calling for violence, so therefore I could not possibly have incited him to violence. And pointed out all these things that you were just saying about the Al-Qaeda influence. Nobody cares. It's just an easy shorthand way for people to say, don't pay any attention to this guy. He's dangerous. He inspired this terror attack. It's not really rational discourse. It's just propaganda. Anyway, more jihad. In Somalia, there was a major attack from Al-Shabaab, an Al-Qaeda affiliated group, on a hotel, the Hyatt Hotel in Mogadishu. And 20 people were killed. 40 people were injured. The president of Somalia has declared all-out war against Al-Shabaab. And it kind of reminds me of... Yeah, it reminds me of when the various presidents of Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan and then Muhammadu Buhari, have both said, we're going to go to war against this Boko Haram and we're going to stamp them out. They're going to be gone. And it never happens. It's just rhetoric that we always see dragged out after the jihad attacks. But
and the fact that even politicians who come along every once in a while and actually want to deal with the problem can't actually deal with the problem. And this flies in the face of this, the myth that this is just a tiny minority of extremists. If this were a tiny minority of extremists, you'd be able to, entire nations would be able to deal with this problem. And yet it keeps springing up, right? Mm-hmm. So it's Nigeria, it's Somalia, it's Pakistan, over and over and over again. People are helpless to do anything about the jihadis killing in their midst. And you'd think if it was really a tiny minority, if this was just a tiny minority of extremists, then no problem, take care of them. And then great, the problem's gone. And now we can all live in, with peace and democracy as Islam really teaches. Instead, no matter how many governments or how much effort they put into dealing with the terrorist groups just keep growing and recruiting more members. And so where are all these members coming from?
And why? What on earth would make people think, oh, I should join a jihad group? This is the question that's never answered by the mainstream. What is it that makes people think this is the right thing to do? Could it be that they're reading the Quran and seeing that it's calling them to wage war against unbelievers and that these people are waging war against unbelievers? It's never considered.
No, and really, if this had nothing to do with Islam, then it shouldn't even be the governments that have to deal with this problem. It should be the educated Muslim clerics, the sheikhs, the imams, educating their people in the mosques and in the madrasas and showing them, hey, you see, this has nothing to do with Islam. And yet it's the mosques and the madrasas that are putting out all of these terrorists who are going and joining Al-Shabaab and Boko Haram and all these other groups. And I mean, again, at what point do we recognize that there's a problem?
There were a couple of imams who were just arrested the last few days in India, and it turns out they were recruiting for Al-Qaeda.
Shocker.
How could imams who read the entire Book of Peace, and they know how we cherry pick from it and take it out of context. How could they possibly come to the conclusion that Al Qaeda was the way to go? It's baffling.
Yeah, don't they realize all you have to do is go to Surah 5, verse 32 of the Quran, chop off the beginning of the verse, which says that this is, for the Jews, quote part of the verse that says, if anyone kills a man, it's as if he's killed all mankind. Ignore the very next verse, which commands Muslims to crucify and dismember and slaughter people in the name of Allah. Ignore the commentaries, which say that, that making war against Muhammad includes even things like criticism and disbelief, and therefore these penalties of slaughtering people apply to people simply for criticism or disbelief. Ignore all of that and just go with the dismembered version of Surah 5, verse 32. Ignore that this is from the Talmud. Ignore all of that stuff. And then you've got this religion of peace. That's how we got the idea that Islam's a religion of peace here in the West. Why aren't they doing it over there?
Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier today on Twitter. This guy, I posted, there was some post or other from Jihad Watch about some jihad violence. Oh, it was this fellow over in Iran. But I'm getting out of order here, so maybe I shouldn't do this. But it was this Muslim cleric in Iran, and he was saying how, oh yes, that Rushdie should be killed. It was a good thing. And so this other Muslim comes onto Twitter and responds saying, no, this guy's got it all wrong. Islam believes in the freedom of speech. So I think, great. Well, that's wonderful. I look forward to when you go over to Tehran and explain to this Muslim cleric how he's getting Islam all wrong. How is it that he became a misunderstander of Islam?
Yeah, it is weird how organizations like CARE, going way, way back, way back, they're always lecturing us and other Americans, telling us and other Americans what Islam really teaches. And it's like, if you guys are right, why are you telling us? Why aren't you telling the imams and the sheikhs and so on? Why aren't you telling them that Islam is peaceful and tolerant? Why aren't you telling the terrorists? Because that would, if there were, mobs of Christians springing up around the world, slaughtering people in the name of Jesus, my job numero uno would be to show them that they need to stop that. It wouldn't be to call everyone a racist for being bothered about it, right? And yet in Islam, oh, you've got terrorists everywhere around pick a country. If there's a sizable Muslim population there, you've got some jihadis there who are going out to slaughter people in the name of Allah. And this problem, and I don't know if you saw the clip, but Mohammed Hijab, in his response to the Salman Rushdie attack, said he said something along the lines of, "Yes, in Islam we've got gangsters. We can't control our gangsters. So hey, even if we do things differently, we can't stop our gangsters for coming and killing you." And it's like, well, great. Now you've admitted it, that there's always this population of people ready to kill within your religion, and that there is nothing you can do to stop them. So what do? Do you try to educate them and show them that Islam is peaceful? No, you lecture us and tell us to shut up about, not wanting to be slaughtered by these guys. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, actually, I have one here. This is not the one that he was responding to, but it doesn't matter. This Lebanese academic, actually, Dr. Sadek Annabulsi, and he said that it was a good thing that Khomeini put out the fatwa against Rushdie because it prevented the West from issuing further insults to Islam. And I think actually Dr. Sadek Annabulsi is quite correct that the fatwa did have a chilling effect on the freedom of speech. And cowardice is pandemic in the West now, largely as a result of the fatwa, but also as a result of the killings after the Muhammad cartoons and Charlie Hebdo and the attack on our event and so on. And yes,
do you remember way back with the Jalons Poston cartoons when the media couldn't not talk about them. They had to talk about them because it was really important news. But they wouldn't show the cartoons. They wouldn't show everyone
Yes,
what
exactly.
what what was enraging the Muslim population of the world. And that sent a huge message to the Muslim world, right?
Hmm.
If you want to get your way, if you want to tell us what we can talk about, if you want to tell newspapers and individuals what they're allowed to post, then just start getting violent and we'll all back down. And just think, if you'd gone back to that very early stages, if the entire world had said, wait a minute, you're threatening to murder these guys over these cartoons, now we're all going to post these cartoons, it would have stopped, right? It would have stopped the killing
Hmm.
over cart. You wouldn't have had the Charlie Hebdo massacre if people hadn't taught Muslims that slaughtering people is the way to stop cartoonists, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it wouldn't have happened. But they sent the message, and here we are. Here we are now, going on 2 decades later, and people still getting killed because we're still sending the message that, hey, violence is the way to get what you want with us.
Hmm. It's always reinforced. And so in Nigeria, we had a killing of over 20 Christians. The Muslim jihadis opened fire in a church, and they shot their way actually onto the site of St. Agnes Catholic Church. They abducted a catechist, Gideon Tsehemba, excuse me, I'm sorry, Tsehemba. They got into the church shooting indiscriminately. More than 20 Christians were killed. In France, a Muslim started to fire random shots. And of course, people were alarmed because there's this guy with a shotgun firing out on the street. People called the police. He began to fire at the police. He was yelling something, David. What do you think he might have been yelling?
I'm gonna go out on a limb here. Go with a different answer. I'm gonna go with Allahu Akbar this time.
I don't know how you do it. It's astonishing. Speaking of which, actually, this is a trick one, David. This is tricky. A guy in Birmingham, England, he came out onto the rooftop of his home with a knife, began waving the knife around and shouting. What do you think he was shouting?
I can't keep going with the same answer, so I'm gonna guess Allahu Akbar.
I'm speechless. I'm shocked. He jumps down from the roof. He's yelling at police. He keeps repeating Allah, Allah. He might be repeating Allahu Akbar as well. It's hard to make out all of it because the police are yelling at him to drop the knife. Ultimately, he got tasered and sent to a mental hospital.
Um, when we sit here week after week, and we can easily talk for an hour or more about the week's most recent attacks from all over the world. And it'll be in Europe, it'll be in the Middle East, it'll be in Pakistan, India, Africa. It's everywhere. And it's like, it's a weird situation. It's like, it's really like we're saying 2 + 2 = 4, and you've got politicians and journalists and educators, entertainers, all shouting, "No, it's 5. 2 + 2 is 5. It's 5. You idiots! You idiots!" And we're giving example after example after example. Here's 2 things. Look, count my finger. 2 and 2. That's 4. No, it's 5. Right? And it's like that level of insanity and stupidity.
Yeah. Well, that's a key passage you may recall in Orwell's 1984, which is such a popular book these days. There you go. So, let's see. We hit that. We're doing well. We're covering more jihad than usual, David, because of organization. It's all about organization. So
we're crushing the jihad now.
We are. Let's go to some Islamic anti-Semitism. That's our next section this week.
Hey, even I saw one on that one.
Did you? Did you see?
I saw one in the UK where a guy traveled like 180 miles to go attack Jews.
No, that's one I missed.
Well, I just saw it. Just came out today in the Daily Mail. Someone sent it to me.
Oh, okay. I missed it today.
I know one that Robert doesn't know. Guess who's the real expert now?
That's right.
Let me go ahead and report this real quick so I can actually educate you on global jihad, Robert. So, Daily Mail,
Next
Muslim
thing you're
man.
write a Quran.
I'm going to write my own Quran now. I have to because I'm here schooling you.
That's it.
Daily Mail, Muslim man, 29, traveled 180 miles from Yorkshire to attack 3 Orthodox Jews on their way to a North London synagogue in a race hate spree, court hears. So this is Abdullah Qureshi, who's been accused of attacking Jewish men, Stamford Hill. Qureshi deliberately traveled from Yorkshire to London to carry out the attacks. But he said that there's no religious motivation.
Oh, of course not.
Yeah, so anyway, he says there's no religious motivation, and it was just sort of random attacks of people who annoyed them after he traveled 180 miles and attacked 3 different Jews.
Just totally at random. Also totally at random, I did want to answer this question. Does your book, that is the Critical Quran, translate all the verses from the Quran or only selected verses? No, this is the whole thing. As a matter of fact, you get the whole Quran and more. There are 114 surahs in the standard Quran. There are 116 in the Critical Quran. Because there are 2 wildcard surahs that they are in some Quran manuscripts. That's why they are there. And it's an illustration of the fluidity of the Quranic text, contrary to Islamic apologetics. But in any case, yes, the whole thing is there and more.
Were those Ubay ibn Ka'b's missing surahs?
Unfortunately not. No, these are a couple of Shiite surahs that have been traced back to about the 15th, 14th century. Nobody knows where they came from before that. But in any case, if they were added even at that late date, it's striking that somebody would have even dared. Lots of
confusion over what's supposed to be in the Quran. It goes all the way back to the time of Muhammad.
Indeed. Okay, so what we have is out of the University of Denver, the director of the Center for Middle East Studies at the University of Denver, a respected academic, Nader Hashemi. And he said that he knows who's behind Salman Rushdie's stabbing. Who do you think's behind it?
Let me guess. Let me just guess. Let me guess. Jews / Israel, something like that.
Mossad.
Yeah. Okay. There we go.
That's Jews / Israel right there, all at once. Mm-hmm. So Nader Hashemi. He knows what it's all about. And meanwhile, the press TV of the Iranian government, one of the Iranian government's news outlets, and all the news outlets in Iran are state-run, not like our free press here that fearlessly reports the news. The state-run Iranian press TV, they had on this academic who used to be a professor at the University of Wisconsin. But he claims that he was fired for dissenting from the American government line. And I think, well, yeah, there are no professors who do that. But in any case, this gentleman, Kevin Barrett, he blames a certain group of people for the stabbing of Rushdie. Who do you think they might be, David?
Jews?
Incredible. That's right. Right again. You're every question, you're just knocking them out of the park here tonight. So Iran's Press TV, state-run news outlet, features an American academic explaining he is a convert to Islam, old Kevin Barrett, and he's got it all figured out. Meanwhile, very interesting statement coming out of an Islamic scholar in the West Bank, in Judea and Samaria. And his name is Mohammed Afif Shadid. And Mohammed Afif Shadid said this. I had to transcribe this whole thing, so I'm going to read it out. If I had to get all this down, then you all can get to hear it. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Mohammed Afif Shadid. Our goal is to spread the religion of Allah throughout the land. The verses from the Quranic chapters The Repentance, that's chapter 9, and The Spoils of War, that's chapter 8, completely abrogated the notion of defensive jihad. We constitute an offensive army. Fight those who do not believe in Allah and the last day and do not comply with what Allah and His Messenger have forgiven. That's 929. Fight them until there is no more strife and religion will be entirely for Allah. That's 839. Kill the polytheists wherever you find them. That's 9:5. We did not set out from Medina to fight the Persian and Byzantine because they occupied and plundered our land, but to usher them into the abode of Islam and nothing else, and to spread the religion of Allah. In the days of the rightly guided caliphs, the Islamic Caliphate, the abode of Islam spanned 6 million square kilometers. Under the Umayyad state, it spanned 11 million square kilometers. In the days of the Abbasid state, it spanned 33 million square kilometers. Then under the Ottoman Caliphate, it spanned 10 million square kilometers. The Second Caliphate, which will rise soon in our own days, inshallah, will reach 510 million square kilometers, which covers the entire globe. Palestine and the Holy Land will only be liberated by those who brandish their swords and their weapons in order to bring it back into the abode of Islam, and obviously to kill all the Jews in it. Muhammad Afif Shadid.
Yeah, and that's see, there are different ways of interpreting the text of the Quran. Now, the stupidest, the absolute dumbest way to interpret the Quran is to, go with something like Surah 532, chop off the beginning of the verse, ignore the next verse, ignore everything else the Quran says, and say that this is what Islam teaches. That's like absolutely insane, and yet that's the dominant method of interpreting the Quran. Here in the U.S. among Muslim organizations and politicians and so on. But there are kind of two serious ways you can reconcile these different passages in the Quran and the Hadith, because you have obviously jihad is proceeding in stages. When Muhammad and his followers are, this small minority who can't hope to win a physical confrontation with the unbelievers, then it's, to you be your religion, to me be my religion, all that sort of stuff. Later, when they start forming alliances, they have more people around them and so on, they're able to fight. Then it becomes a message of defensive jihad. Fight people who do something to you first, even if it's just criticism or making fun of you or something like that. But other people have to start it. And then eventually it becomes, verses like Surah 9, verse 29, fight those who do not believe. And in the Hadith, Muhammad saying, I've been commanded to fight people until they say there's no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. So there it's just fighting people based on what they believe. And so the sort of final marching orders are for offensive jihad. We're going to subjugate the world. We're going to violently subjugate non-Muslims simply for being non-Muslims. And given all of that, given that sort of unfolding, these unfolding stages of jihad, you've still got two basic ways that you can interpret it. You can interpret it as the guy you quoted obviously was, that, hey, once we reach the stage of offensive jihad, that's what we're supposed to be doing. There's no going back to some earlier stages. And so that's one way of interpreting it. The way that I interpret it, and certain other Muslims interpret it, is certain Muslims, even Muslim scholars, have interpreted it, is that it depends on the context and the status of Muslims in a society. So if you're in a society where you're a tiny minority of the population, like Muhammad and his followers was, then you operate based on the passages that were revealed when Muhammad was in that similar context. If you're able, if you make up 15, 20% of the population, you're able to fight defensively, but not offensively, you're not able to go out and subjugate the world, then, you go ahead and fight defensively. And then when you are the most powerful force in a society, then you violently subjugate people. And so I think you could interpret the texts in either way. The reason I would go with the one I just talked about, the latter method of interpretation, is because you can look at any country in the entire world and it follows that pattern. It follows that pattern of, in other words, you can pick a country, don't tell me the country, tell me the percentage of Muslims in the population, and I will tell you the message that they are preaching about Islam. and it will be the message that Muhammad preached when he was in a similar situation in society. And so there's basically the entire Muslim world somehow always falls into line with that pattern.
Always. And I just keep hoping that people who keep insisting in the West that jihad is only defensive are going to head over to the West Bank and talk to Mohammed Afif Shadid about how he's misunderstanding Islam.
Of course, they're going to go talk to him, not us.
Yeah, of course, because that's what they always do. Okay, let's see. We got a bunch of dumb infidel stories here. There was a terrible video. I don't know if you saw it, David. It was out on Twitter a few days ago of a Muslim migrant, actually a migrant, I should say, from Guinea in Africa. And Guinea is 85% Muslim, so it's very likely that he was indeed a Muslim migrant in Italy, raping a Ukrainian refugee out on the street. And she is pleading and praying and sobbing, and he is raping her. And this video was actually shared on Twitter by a politician in Italy named Giorgia Meloni. And Giorgia Meloni put this out with the comment, "One cannot remain silent in the face of this atrocious episode of sexual violence against a Ukrainian woman carried out in daytime, in Piacenza by an asylum seeker. A hug to this woman. I will do everything I can to restore security to our cities." So that's a very important message as far as I'm concerned, in light of the fact that you have so much rape activity from the migrants, refugees in Europe, with the rape gangs in Britain, and rape rates rising all over Europe because of the migrants. And the migrants are doing this because of as many of them have said explicitly, the Quran allows them to take the captives of the right hand, the spoils of war, and to rape them and so on, to use them in this way. This is allowed in Islam. And yet the anger that has been aroused by this incident in Italy is all directed at Giorgia Meloni for sharing the video, and not at the rapists or at the situation. Enrico Letta, who is the head of the center-left Democratic Party, he said, "It is indecent to use images of a rape, even more indecent to do so for electoral purposes," and so on, and all kinds of politicians. Of course, they're the competitors of Giorgia Meloni. They want to defeat her at the ballot box, so it's understandable that they would use this, but nobody's upset about the phenomenon that she pointed out. Everybody's just upset that she shared the video.
And I mean, suppose someone just doesn't want to believe that Islam actually allows this, even though we could show them from the Quran, we could show them from the Hadith, we could show them from the Sirah, we could show them from the Tafsir, we could show them from 14 centuries of Islamic history that Islam allows the rape and subjugation, sexual subjugation of non-Muslim women. And suppose you just didn't want to believe that at all. It seems that even if you just wanted to remain completely blind to that, you would at the very least be thinking in just purely commonsensical, practical terms. Wait a minute, you've got these guys who, in their country, women are completely covered, and they're told all their lives that women who aren't completely covered are unwrapped meat, and they basically want it. And then you grab a bunch of these guys and take them over to your country, and they start raping a bunch of girls. Shocker. Yeah, shocker if you're a complete idiot. I mean, obviously that's what they're going to do, right? If you're told, hey, let me put it this way. If you are around women your entire life and they're completely covered up like frumpy ninjas their entire lives, you never develop any sort of self-control around a woman who's attractive, because you've never had the opportunity to develop self-control, right? You've never had to control yourself. And so all of a sudden you take these guys and throw them in a bunch of, women who aren't dressed like that. And lo and behold, they start raping them.
Yeah,
So
oddly
anyway, the
enough.
point is, even if you thought it had nothing to do with the religion, at least understand that you're going to have a problem here just based on, where these guys come from and where they're going.
Indeed. And so in the UK, in the city of Rotherham, where Muslim rape gangs abused and victimized and destroyed the lives of as many as 1,400 girls, the city was just named Children's Capital of Culture.
Well, children did learn a lot about Islamic culture there in Rotherham.
They did. But you're not allowed to say that in Britain. No way. All right, we go to the Islamic House of Wisdom, which I'm sorry, it just reminds me of the International House of Pancakes, but the Islamic House of Pancakes in Dearborn, Michigan, and we have the Imam Muhammad Ali Elahi. I actually, I kind of know Muhammad Ali Elahi. Back in the days when I was on Hannity a lot, I was on jousting with him a couple times, and he has gone way up in the world. He is now a friend of presidents and kings. He recently hosted Vice President Kamala Harris, and she was full of praise for his operation there at the Islamic House of Wisdom in Dearborn, Michigan, if not pancakes. And the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, recently appeared there for a prayer service. He's a pillar of the community. The mayor of Dearborn Heights actually made a video calling for people to contribute to the mosque, and on and on and on. But also, he has for years worked with the Iranian regime, and he praised Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, the former president of Iran, and Hassan Rouhani, the former president of Iran, people who have very unsavory human rights records. And he served as the head of political ideology for the Iranian Navy. He came to this country originally in 1991 in order to inspect American branches of Hezbollah, which is a designated terrorist organization. Now, why would somebody who is friendly with and working with a designated terrorist organization, why would any politician want to have anything to do with this man? It would seem like it would be political death, but not in the United States today. If Kamala Harris actually had been seen with us, she'd be in big political trouble.
But she'd be toast.
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, actually, that happened once. Way back when, in, it must have been 2006 or 5, maybe even 4. I was invited to speak at the Temple of the Arts, which is a synagogue in Los Angeles. And they have the Yom Kippur service. I don't know if many people know, but the Yom Kippur service goes on all day. And it's a very special day. It's the big day. And they have things going on all day. And this particular synagogue had all these speakers. And I was one of the many speakers. And also among the many speakers was Hillary Clinton. And there she was, big as life. I was 5 feet away from her. We did not speak. We had nothing to do with each other. But I spoke and Hillary Clinton spoke. And so Hussam Aylouch of the Council on American Islamic Relations actually was calling upon Hillary Clinton to denounce me. Because obviously we must be pals since we spoke at the same event. And this is this is obviously part of CARE's efforts to make any critic of Islam and Jihad radioactive and make people understand that the Temple of the Arts was really the target, that they shouldn't have invited me. And of course, they never made that mistake again. But the same kind of thing has never happened with the people it should have happened with imams tied to jihad entities like Muhammad Ali Elahi. They've become the respected mainstream. And this is one of the reasons why we're in this trouble. Yes.
Two things. One, maybe we should start, using that. So you should be wearing an "I'm with her" pin when you speak. But no, start using it. Hey, You know who our favorite politician is, and
That's it.
and say and this person may pretend not to be on the same page with us, but we can see it in his eyes. He's really on the same page with us. He gets our full endorsement. We should start rolling like that. The second thing, that's a minor thing, but that mosque, the Islamic House of Wisdom.
Yeah.
I mean, wisdom is hikmah. How do you not go with House of Hikmah? That sounds so cool, right? House of Hikmah.
Hikmah
welcome
House.
to the House of Hikmah.
Maybe somebody.
I'd go there. I'd go there just because of the cool name. That sounds like a cool YouTube channel. Muslims who are watching, start up a channel called House of Hikmah, and you're going to get like 100,000 subscribers.
Somebody probably thought that it sounded too much like hick,
Yeah.
and they didn't want to. They didn't want to go there.
All
right.
See, this guy didn't even have the Hikmah to name his place House of Hikmah.
You're right. There's no doubt about it. Muhammad Ali Elahi, maybe we should have him on. He could. We could finally use that third panel that showed up in our first show here, and I don't know. That's maybe not for this show. Anyway, okay. The Conservative Party in Britain has suspended a gentleman named Steve Flood. Steve Flood was a counselor at the Sprites Ward on Ipswich Borough Council. I got to tell you, I don't have any idea really what that means Steve Flood actually did. But he's been suspended following allegations of Islamophobia. I regret to tell you that Steve Flood retweeted a couple of, most of the stories about this, by the way, they would not say the terrible things that Steve Flood said. It was just too terrible for the delicate ears of BBC readers. They could not say anything. But the Ipswich Star, probably people work there, they're less versed in the politically correct silence that one must maintain about this sort of thing, noted that Steve Flood retweeted two Twitter posts. One said Islam was a faith that does not allow free speech. And the other said that it called for Islam to be banned in the UK. Now, I'm not in favor of banning religions. That's just going to create thought police and totalitarianism, all this business. But at the same time, it has to be noted that there are plenty of aspects of Islam, including the denial of free speech, that are not compatible with Western-style secular republics. And ultimately, the Western-style secular republics are going to have to deal with that one way or the other. Surrender or draw a line. But there is a contradiction between Islamic law and Western law. And it's not going to be something they can ignore forever. So Steve Flood actually, it seems to me, was making perfectly reasonable observations. But they have Sharia in Britain now, apparently, just like in India. And so he was suspended.
One quick comment. Christian Gadfly said, I can just imagine Lipham, referring to Sajid Lipham, whispering, "Welcome to the House of Hikmah." The dude, anytime anyone does anything wrong, he starts lecturing them about their hikmah. So I don't know if you're familiar with Sajid, Robert, but
I'm gonna have to check
where's the hikmah? And he speaks in like this, like almost yelling whisper. It's awesome. But yeah, as soon as Sajid hears about House of Hikmah, he's going to change his channel name.
Well, then he's going to owe you 15%.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm just so proud of my ability to put the comments up. It's just that there are so few that... I'm sorry, I don't mean to insult the 19 people who are here. Really. I'm very grateful for all of you. I love
there
you
are
all.
So few that aren't completely stupid.
No. There's just so much hikmah in them, really, that it's too refulgent. It would blind me. All right. We have also out of Britain, Masood Shadjare, who is the founder of the Islamic Human Rights Commission, which has been described by the former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn as all that's best in Islam. But he has justified the fatwa against Rushdie. He has done all sorts of unsavory things of this kind. He has supported various jihadis, including Abu Hamza, the famous hook-handed preacher. And Masood Shajare also got £1.4 million. That's $1,650,000 in government funds, charity cash to disperse to his favorite charities. So that's just more dumb infidels. Those kinds of stories, unfortunately, there are always more of those than any other.
For every jihadi attack, there are like 100 stupid infidels.
Indeed. Also in Britain, a professor at Oxford University. What's his name here? I'm looking for his name. Oh, Daniel O'Gorman. Daniel O'Gorman, a professor at Oxford University, and he wrote after Rushdie was stabbed, the attack was undoubtedly an assault on free speech. But no doubt about that there, Daniel. However, recent scholarship on Islamophobia warns us that a collective eagerness to focus on Islamic extremism can lend itself to a perception of the world in which Western-style liberalism is pitched simplistically against religious, and especially Muslim, barbarism. This sort of worldview, academics further warn, can lead to an increase in discrimination against Muslims.
Yeah, so in other words, the same thing we always hear, don't do anything that's going to lead to a backlash, so keep your mouth shut about all the slaughtering in the name of Allah that's going on.
That's right, we have to keep our mouth shut about it. We can't have a collective eagerness to focus on Islamic extremism. It will only lead to Islamophobia, David. You should know this by now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see. I do have one more category, and time is running short. This is the women are equal in Islam category, and this is...
All right, sorry. Now someone has the account. Someone in the chat has the account name House of Hikmah now. And they said Sajid can't take my channel name now, so they named their channel House of Hikmah.
That's great.
That's funny.
That's great. I hope they have pancakes. All right. In India, a Muslim father, his name is Shahid Qureshi. That's two Qureshis tonight, David. It's just a bad thing. But in any case, Shahid Qureshi had a daughter, Shayna, and he wanted her to get married and had fixed her marriage, arranged her marriage. But Shayna did not like the individual that she was supposed to marry, and so Shahid Qureshi actually beheaded her. Why did he behead her, David?
I don't know. I can think of like 8 different reasons.
They're probably all operative.
Yeah.
There's 47.4, of course. There is the stain on the honor of the family. 47.4, Quran 47.4, ladies and gentlemen, as you likely know, says, when you meet the unbelievers, strike the next. But why would he think his daughter's an unbeliever?
Doing some un-Islamic stuff.
There you go. You do un-Islamic stuff. You're not a Muslim. Terrible story out of Pakistan. We have a girl who... What did she do? Let's see. I'm not even sure what she did. Oh, it's another forced marriage story. And she refused. And so her father took out the phone and started to video as he made her lick shoes. Yeah, it's just a gross, disgusting video, and it made the rounds last week. This is the kind of thing that you don't ordinarily get people talking about when they're talking about 434 that says you can beat a disobedient woman. And if you can beat a disobedient woman, and you get these apologists saying, oh, but Muhammad said you can only do it with the toothbrush. Okay, well, this woman's not even being beaten. but you have set the atmosphere, arranged for the environment with 434 that you can discipline a woman who is disobedient. And so he's found this novel and gross, disgusting way to do it, perfectly within his rights as her father in Islam.
Yep. Some people in the comments section saw that video.
Yeah, terrible video. And of course you can find all this on jihadwatch.org, the source of all these news stories, with the sources if you are skeptical about anything that we're saying. One last, in Nigeria, a 16-year-old Christian girl was kidnapped, forced to convert to Islam. A lot of people say, well, these kinds of stories, they have nothing to do with Islam, because chapter 2, verse 256 of the Quran says there is no compulsion in religion. But she wasn't really forced. She could have chosen to be killed. So she was perfectly free to convert to Islam.
Mm-hmm.
There you have it, Color Man. I don't know. Am I not giving you good enough lead-ins, maybe? Anyway.
That's I just wanted to tell everyone here, since we're wrapping up.
Yes.
Lots of people always ask, hey, what can we do about this? It's because you just mentioned your website that all of this, people can find all of these stories over at Jihad Watch. But ladies and gentlemen, if you're not subscribed to subscribed to Robert's YouTube channel, you should be subscribed. If you're not checking Jihad Watch regularly, you should. If you're on Twitter, I don't recommend getting on Twitter if you're not on Twitter, but if you are on Twitter, make sure you follow Robert. And one way of helping is every time he posts a story, share that. Go ahead and retweet that. Share it with anyone you know.
Because shadow banned.
Yeah, and it's basically what the algorithms used to do. The algorithms used to say, here's something that people are interested in. Let's keep sharing that with more people. And I had videos get millions of views just because the algorithm picked them up, that people really liked the videos and so on. Then they started tweaking things. Well, we can't share this stuff, and so they came up with various degrees and methods of shadow banning on all of the platforms. But human beings can do what the algorithms used to do, right? Human beings can be the ones who go out and see the stories and then go and share it. So keep in mind that there's always all kinds of stuff to do to help deal with jihad, and one of the easiest is just sharing the information that comes out.
Thank you very much, David. And do you have a new channel that you want to tell us about?
I have a couple new channels, and the relevant one is Act 17 Polemics. You can check that out. That's actually L and Your Brother in Christ. They have channels, but they're taking my new videos that deal with jihad related topics and posting them at Act 17 Polemics. So you can find my jihad content there.
Okay. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're a little bit over, so we'll wrap up. But please do let me know if you'd like me to make any videos. Maybe I'll make some this week. Let me know if you have any good ideas as to what they should be about. And if they do seem like good ideas, I will do my best to make them. I don't know if this is going to work. We'll see. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us for another thrilling episode of This Week in Jihad. And unfortunately, we're likely to be back next week. Till then, God bless.